Yeah, it's not. You didn't try as hard as you do for the Ghibli
Yeah.
chats. Hello, everybody. For today, I am joined by my husband and two of my friends to chat about Daredevil Born Again. So I wanted to start with two specific questions. One, I wanted everybody to say what their relationship to Daredevil is. If you've read the comics, which run have you read, or runs if there's multiple that you've picked up? And what were your thoughts of the original Daredevil Netflix show? And then I want you to guess what you think everybody else in the chat thought of the show before we reveal what we thought of the show. So Marcus, you can go
Oh
first
man.
with all of that.
Oh, I'm first. Okay. So my relationship to Daredevil, I was first introduced to Daredevil through the wonderful, it's not really wonderful, Ben Affleck movie when I was a kid. Yeah, that was my introduction to it. Um, as a kid, it was fantastic. I loved it so much. Obviously, getting older, it's terrible. But it did get me into the world of Daredevil comics, where I read the Frank Miller Born Again. I read his whole run when I was younger. Um, and then I got older. I read the Chip Zdarsky run, as well as the Brian Michael Bendis run, which is great.
Ooh.
And then watched the Netflix show. Yeah, so that's I haven't really read that much Daredevil outside of that, but I want to read more. But that's my all-encompassing Daredevil stuff. And the second question, guess. So here's my guess. Danielle,
Okay.
I'm gonna guess you did not like it,
Okay.
very much, if at all. Sean, I'm gonna say parts of it you did like, but overall dislike. Enrique, I'm gonna guess that you had a good time with it.
Now, do you want to elaborate as to why you think that, or do you feel like elaborating would reveal
Yeah,
your
I think
thoughts
I
about
think you
it?
just gotta
Just
Yeah, just
throw it
like
out
quick.
there.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
I'll go
That's
next.
fair. Okay.
So I've actually not read that much Daredevil. I've only read a little bit of Ed Brubaker Daredevil because I love Ed Brubaker, and I really love the Netflix show, particularly the third season with Bullseye. I really like that one. I can't guess L because I already know. I'm going to say Enrique had a good time, as Marcus put it. And I'm going to say, Marcus, I think you had mostly a good time with maybe like a few caveats. So I'm going to say mostly a good time was had by Marcus. Final answer.
And I do want to know, Marcus, what did you think of the Daredevil Netflix show?
I really liked it. I actually think I like the second season the most, even though it's probably the most convoluted and like maybe the messiest of the seasons. But
But that makes sense since you read.
I'll leave it there. Right, and
Yeah.
I was like, honestly, from there, I'll probably leave it if I get into this season.
What about Defenders? Wasn't that a masterpiece?
I had a good
Just
time with
kidding.
Defenders.
Enrique.
Yes. I read quite a bit of Daredevil. I read Stan Lee's run from the Masterpiece collection. I read some of Frank Miller's stuff. I read Brian Michael Bendis stuff, Ed Brubaker stuff. I'm like all over around with Daredevil. So he and I have a really good relationship. But the only reason I got through into Daredevil is because my love for the Punisher. And the Punisher, like, is always going head to head with Daredevil in the comics. So I'm like, who's this guy who looks like the devil? So I just started like reading into it, got down that rabbit hole. I agree with Marcus. The second season of Daredevil is the better version, like the first half at least. And then the second half just got real messy. And so I loved the Daredevil show. It was really cool, really fun. I almost grabbed one of my scarves to wrap around my head to do a little a wink to the Defenders, where he borrows Jessica Jones's scarf. And I would say Sean loved the lawyer stuff because you're always about lawyers. So I would say that part of the show you did love. L, the general consensus is like you didn't have a good time, but I want to say it's like a hit or miss with you. Marcus,
Okay.
I think you really enjoyed it, honestly.
Okay, it'll be my turn. I'll start with the guessing, and similar to Sean, I can't say his because I know, but I actually typically, Enrique, I feel like you're really great about just kind of enjoying things for what they are and being there for the vibes, but because you have so much with Punisher and Daredevil, I kind of feel like you have certain expectations, and I'm going to guess that you liked certain integrations that maybe were there, but that you feel like they didn't do enough of them or they weren't present enough. So I'm going to say you're like kind of mixed. And then Marcus, I think you're mixed too, where I don't think this is probably your favorite version of Daredevil and that you're underwhelmed with certain things and you think certain things could have been expanded on. So you're maybe like, it was decent, but not the best. That's going to be my guess. And then I'm the most clueless when it comes to Daredevil. Similar to you, Marcus, I saw the terrible movie back in the day just because I'm a little older than you. I realized it was bad even then. Just kidding. That wasn't the only.
No way.
Just kidding. I mean, I didn't like it, but I saw it and it was just like, oh, okay. And then the Netflix version I quite liked. I actually feel opposite where I liked season 1 and season 3 just because I think with this particular character, I gravitated more toward the gritty noir feel. And then when it kind of got more into the hand stuff, to me, that felt like such a departure from what we had in season 1. However, I know that that's just from hearing from Sean, that is pretty true to certain runs of Daredevil. It just felt like it was a little out of place within the context of season 1 and season 3. So it almost feels like season 1 and season 3 are their own thing, and then season 2 was its own thing.
Yeah, you would be a Bendis fan and not a Miller fan, I think is
okay.
Yeah.
But I think it's time for us to reveal our general thoughts. And because Marcus, you went first, I want you to go first with this as well. So who was the most correct about your thoughts?
I feel like all of you are pretty close. It is more on the mix side. I did have like a good time with it. There are for me some issues, but I also I at least know the context with this season, so I don't know if anybody else or if this matters, but the previous CEO of Disney was like, hey, we need to pump out content at all times. We need to do 18 episodes of Daredevil. And once he left, the new CEO came in and was like, hey, you need to give power back to Kevin Feige, who a lot of Marvel fans know. He's like in charge of Marvel. And he's like, yeah, this isn't good. We need to cut this down a lot. So it was from 18 to 9, and they kind of interwove things. So I see a lot of we'll talk about it. The Muse stuff, I thought that was going to be longer. It was a quick 2-episode of maybe 3-episode arc. There's not much to it. But the stuff that I really liked, I really enjoyed. But I fully admit that there are problems, for me at least, in this show. I'm curious to see how the second season looks, because now there is not that like, hey, we got to stitch things together. If it's still kind of more the same, probably wouldn't continue after that. But overall, an overall positive experience.
Okay, Sean, I call on you.
Yeah, because Marcus might know, and maybe I don't know. I thought I saw initially the original writers were like, we barely want to acknowledge the old show, and then they brought
the Netflix show.
Yeah. And then they brought in different writers who were like, oh, maybe we should hint at it here and there. Have you seen that? Is that accurate, or am I just reading misinformation online?
No. So I think, from when I following this stuff, when it came to, I think I hope I'm correct on this. What you're mentioning is the showrunners were like, hey, yeah, the Netflix stuff, a little too much talking, little too much, the dialogue stuff is okay. We need more action, which is funny because this doesn't have nearly as much action. And a lot of people, the people I follow push back like, that stuff is great. That was the stuff that was great about the Netflix show. So it's to my knowledge, the showrunners weren't replaced. They just seem to have a weird feeling towards the Netflix version.
Gotcha.
At least that's my understanding.
And Enrique, you were also raising your hand.
Oh, I just thought that's what Sean wanted us to do. So
you just
raise our hands.
Yeah.
I actually do have a question because similar to what I do with books and everything, I tried to avoid seeing any internet thoughts about this at all before jumping in. But when you were saying originally it was going to be more and then it got cut down, had they already started filming with the intention of it being longer and then they made cuts after and did reshoots, or did they decide, you know what, we need to trim this, and they did that before shooting?
That's a great question. They filmed all 18 episodes. I read an article. It was like Charlie Cox was like, they were like, hey, we need you to come back. He's like, I'm done. And like, not like we've got to come back. So they used stuff from the 18 episodes, cut out a bunch, and they reshot a bunch of new things because they didn't like what they had. Probably so. If anybody saw She-Hulk, Daredevil pops up in that. Spoilers, sorry, but it's been years, and I don't think a lot of people watched it, unfortunately. But it's not great. But either way, he's in it, and they were going to use that kind of more comedic version, and that was the tone and style they were going with in those 18 episodes. Once everything kind of changed, like, forget it, don't do that anymore, and they stopped. They filmed them all and asked everybody to come back and do more.
So on Disney Plus, it is funny because it's like the Daredevil collection, and that says She-Hulk. Mm-hmm. That's like She-Hulk just because they're lawyers. Like I was just like, it's a weird combination.
Yeah.
Sean, do you want to chime in next with your general thoughts?
Yeah, my general thoughts. It was not very good. You know, I gotta say it. I like Charlie Cox. I like Vincent, whatever his last name is. I like John Bernthal. I think my favorite moments were Punisher punishing things.
Not the law.
Yeah, but they could not save what was kind of not the best writing. I think it was very on the nose in a lot of ways. It was just like, hey, if you forgot something, let's have someone say something really obvious. You know, it felt kind of ham-handed. It didn't have like, I don't know. It felt like the original show was a show for adults, and this was like a show that was like trying to be for adults, but like not really doing it. I as a general thought that I'll expand upon later, I despise the BB report with all of my being. I thought it was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I don't know why I had to have man on the street be like, well, I sure hope Daredevil comes back like every freaking 15 minutes. Because it's like, yeah, we all want Daredevil to come back. That's why we were watching the show. Can he come back? I will say, fun fact, Enrique knows me well. My favorite part was the court drama. I really actually, I enjoyed the one episode we got with the court legal battle with
White Tiger.
That's another thing.
That was episode 3, right?
Yeah. I thought that was going to be like something kind of in the background for the whole season. And I was like, all right, yeah, he's off the hook. He's good. And I was like, oh, okay, well, there goes my legal drama. So I'll stop for now. But I wanted to like it more than I did. It made me a little bummed. But I do like Daredevil. I guess that's the thing. It's like, if it had not been a show with Daredevil and Punisher and stuff in it, I would have been like, boo. But then I was like, I like Daredevil. He's cool. The end.
Enrique.
So, I'm sorry, if it was just Reborn or Born Again, Sean, would you just been like, nah, I'm not watching this until like the very end where it'll be like Daredevil Reborn? You're like, oh, yeah, that's great show. Is that...
I'm saying if this was like some original show, like cop drama, or like, you know, just some guy who's like, I'm gonna go save my city, I would have been like, this sucks. But I'm like, well, I like Daredevil, so
I think that's what they're banking on, to be honest.
Yeah. That you like Daredevil. I would say, general, you kind of had my like thoughts a lot better than the other two. Like, I did like it. again, but I agree with Karen's weird laugh, sob, pause acting. The fact that they threw that BB little like thing in there, I'm like, I hated it when they did that for the one of the movies for DC. What was it? I think Justice League, where they
I was
had
gonna
them
say
like,
just.
oh,
I'm pretty
yeah,
sure it's Justice League. Yeah.
where they had those kids go up to Superman, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, every time one of those popped up, I'm like, this was a bad choice for Justice League. This is also a bad choice for Marvel. Like, I get it. People want to see whatever, I guess. But I'm like, no, that's one of the things that kind of just turned me off. So every time that popped up, I was like, oh, time for a bathroom break. Oh, time to get some more chips or soda or something. But the full episode of the court drama I did enjoy. I'm a big Suits fan, so that was also like really cool to see. Which is why I love season 2 of Daredevil, the Netflix one, because you saw the court trying to like see if the Punisher's good or bad, or you go to prison or go to a mental institution or something. Like I thought, yeah, that was cool. That was awesome seeing Matt Murdock's side, because sometimes you don't see the heroes like when they're not heroing around, like they're not being vigilantes. So I did like it a little bit more that you saw Matt Murdock as opposed to Daredevil. And spoiler alert, until like the end, basically. Kind of like the first season of the Netflix show. Like it's really cool.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Is like, I've already seen this. You know, I've already waited like an entire season to see him like put the suit on, and it's like, oh, let's do it again. It worked the first time. Let's just make them wait. Anyways,
yeah, and I had hit and miss moments, but I did enjoy it, especially like the furniture stuff.
Yeah, I was wondering because I mean I do think he is a good actor for Punisher. I think all of these actors are quite good at these roles. Unfortunately, that is probably the only good thing I can say. I thought this was one of the worst shows I've ever seen. I thought it was absolute garbage. I felt nothing when Foggy died except for annoyance at how bad the opening was. Everything about the opening I hated, and I was like, well, maybe it'll go up from here, and that was just a weird opening. By the end of episode 4, I actually was starting to feel hope because I thought the end of episode 4 was okay. Then we had episode 5, which was like, did you know that we have other characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? And it was going to be a weird one-off bank robbery plotline where we have to try to... Anyway, so...
We have to say Kamala Khan like 3 or 4 times and be like, do you hear that?
Yeah,
and see?
Do you know who it is? Do you get it?
To be fair, in the original Netflix Daredevil, there was the one-off of like this boy who just got shipped here. What was that all about? And you really don't explore that. You just kind of hear about the hand, and then that leads you to have expectations for what's to come with those plot lines. So I understand that occasionally you're going to have these random episodes that are set up for other things. But then episode 6, I was back to feeling like, uh-oh, because of everything with Muse was atrocious. It was horribly executed among pretty much everything. Episode 7, I was like, there was a couple interesting things that happened. Maybe the last episode will sort of bring some stuff home for me, and then it'll at least build interest into whatever they're going to do next. And I thought that last episode was so bad that it retroactively made everything even worse. So on that note, let's talk about our criticisms, of which I imagine we all have some. I have so many. I just eventually...
Can I talk about the BB report?
What if we interjected... What if throughout this entire conversation we interjected random people like, what did you think of Daredevil?
Yeah.
But I started taking out my phone to keep notes of everything I hated for every single episode. Not just stuff I hated. That wasn't my intention initially, but that's essentially what it turned into. And I will say I felt bad for Sean sitting next to me because I just kept being angry. And I promise I'll let you guys answer in a second about things you didn't like. And Sean can go more and more on about the BB report. But there were multiple times where I would jokingly say whatever I thought the dumbest thing is that they could do, and that's what they actually did next. So when Mew started bleeding, I was like, oh, is he gonna start drawing with it? And then he like starts drawing. I was like, no, stop. And then at one point I was like, oh, we haven't seen Vanessa and Fisk in therapy for a while, and that was the next scene, like 2 seconds later. And then the other one where he's like in the lair fighting Muse, and then the drawings are all out. I was like, don't you dare show me a flashback of him touching Heather's face, and then he touches this not 3-dimensional drawing and knows it's her. Don't do it. And then he does it. I was like, this is the dumbest thing.
Yeah.
I was losing my
Can
mind.
we just pause on that for a second? Just let's all acknowledge that is perhaps some of the worst writing known to man. That makes no sense. I know he's a superhero. You can't feel a painting and be like, that's my girlfriend.
Yeah, it doesn't.
That doesn't happen. That's impossible.
It would make more sense.
Sensitive fingers.
No.
It would make more sense if it was a sculpture, maybe. But also, I like how within that episode, for the first time, he's like doing this to her face. And they need to decide, can he see or can he not see? Because the show definitely forgot that he's blind sometimes. There were times where he would say stuff and I'm like, he's blind. Like when he's in his there's a blackout. He's in his apartment. He comes in, Frank Castle's there and he's like, you shaved and got a haircut. And I was like, how does he know? He doesn't know. You're telling me that he had to feel his girlfriend's face in order to feel the drawing of her. But then he can just see during a blackout that Frank Castle got a haircut and a shave. I was like, why?
He can smell the new hair products.
That's what Sean's like, maybe he can smell the aftershave. And I was like,
my other guess was he was like using echolocation and it bounced off of him different. He's like,
yeah, he used echolocation.
Do that.
I mean, he kind of can see. Like, it's not blind, but yeah, you can kind of, but yeah.
Right, I agree. I know he can kind of see. I'm not yelling at you, just to be clear. I know he can kind of see, which is why you don't need to have him touching her face and then touching the drawing. He should just be able to, like, I think in the first Daredevil, they had one shot of the multiple suns kind of view where it shows you how he sees. So do that. Show that again. Show her face and then how he kind of sees it in the drawing. Decide, is he completely blind or not? They couldn't decide. And then he also ups his, of course, we know, he tries to act more sometimes like he's blind intentionally so that people underestimate him. Right. And I feel like they forgot that too, because at the beginning when Poindexter is being tried and his sentencing is about to happen and Matt speaks and Karen walks in, he's like, I'm never going to see. And then she walks in, he goes, we're never going to see, across the room. And I'm like, everybody would be like, wait, is he literally gesturing to all of us? Or is he gesturing to his best friend that just walked in? That is definitely the person he was pointing to. It just irritated me. It happened enough times.
She may have been wearing perfume.
But the courtroom people in the, like, Poindexter would be like, wait, how did he know that how does he know that? And I have to say, to Sean's point, by the way, these are like tip of the iceberg for my frustration. But these are just like the most egregious, aside from the Taekwondo thing, which we will get to. But you know what? I'm going to stop yelling. You guys go. And I'll say more.
BB report.
Yeah, talk about the BB report.
Well, Sean, yell.
Okay. So what annoys me about the BB report is that girl, BB, investigative journalist, apparently, is what? 21, 22. Okay. If the BB reports were like vertical and like supposed to be like a TikTok, you know, she's like, what do you think of Daredevil? And then like, I hate him. Or they're like, I love him. I would have been annoyed, but kind of fine with it because that is our world. BB making freaking PBS 1980s documentaries. What? Like that? Nobody's doing that. I'm sorry. There's not a 22-year-old out there who is like, let me get a shot. Can we get a shot of some shoes hanging up there? Can we get a shot? And then let's cut to, what's your name, sir? Ralph? You know, like that's like, it looks like this weird, like, you know, I'm trying to think, like PBS is the only thing that comes to mind. It's like, you know, a crew went out to be like,
the local news.
Yeah, let's talk to the
people. Yeah, local news.
You know, like
Well, and
she's a one person thing, you know, like it's I don't understand this weird production value where it says BB, you know, at the bottom, BB report.
her little watermark. Well, I do want to add, I'm backing you up.
Anyway,
I'm backing you up that on one hand, I'm like, maybe this is her passion and this is the style that she likes. And maybe I don't really care for it. Sean definitely doesn't care for it, but whatever. But the part that annoyed me is I'm pretty sure they had segments during the blackout that still had this high production value that I'm like, during the blackout though, like where's all the Wi-Fi? Like if it's even kind of bad weather, I can't upload anything. And she's putting together.
Nobody's watching that. That's what I'm saying. Is like if it was a TikTok, if she was like a popular TikToker, I could see them get, you know, let's get her with Mayor Fisk. Let's get an exclusive interview with, you know, I almost like it in that sense. Like, let's ignore the mainstream media, but let's get this, you know, independent journalist, you know, because she's
let's get boots on the ground and see what people really think, as opposed to
I don't mind
higher
that,
ups.
but like nobody is watching whatever she's putting out in that way. It doesn't make any sense, and like it bothered me. Who cares what that person thinks of Daredevil? Also, every single time they have to tell us what they think, and they always think the same thing. Gee, I hope the vigilantes come back because it's getting dangerous out here on the streets. That's what every single one of them said. There was never any variation. Why? It's just
there might have been some just to make sure that there might have been like, I don't like that.
Same, you know, it's just the same thing. Anyways, I'm done. I don't like the BB report. I thought it was stupid.
I don't know. Tell us more. Tell us how you really feel.
That's all. That's the only criticism you had of the show.
Oh no. I mean, so I'll get into something different. I thought the editing was weird. It was really strange how it was like a little merry-go-round. They would be like, we have to have a scene with Fisk, then we have to have a scene with Matt, then we have to have a scene with this character. Let's get back to Fisk. And sometimes
the same scene broken up.
Yes. Sometimes there'd just be like Fisk, Matt, Fisk, but like,
or the worst one for you was Fisk with Vanessa. Now Fisk at the party. Now Fisk with Vanessa in the bedroom. Then Fisk.
Yeah, that one specifically I really didn't like. But it was just like these really short, like you couldn't even get into the scene because they would just go back and they really, really wanted you to get, hey, let's set up a parallel between Fisk and Matt, because they would have Fisk beating on a guy, and then it would cut to Matt beating on a guy, and then it'd cut back to Fisk.
It would be Matt fighting Muse, and then Fisk beating up Vanessa's lover. Like, yeah, these are the same.
I get it. I get it. And the thing you were talking about, when he has that party with the billionaires, they did this weird thing where it's like he's talking to Vanessa, then would cut to the party, which is in the future, and then it would cut back to Vanessa and him talking about the upcoming party, and then would go back to the party, and you're like, this is not.
I'm wondering if this now pertains to what you talked about with how much they had to cut, if this was a way to sort of condense these longer scenes and splice it up of, okay, let's just take the essentials. Maybe there was more dialogue in those moments, but then they had to cut parts out. So then in order to make the cuts feel less ridiculous, they inserted back and forth so that they just hit the highlights. I'm wondering if it was something like that. I mean, after hearing that they cut, I didn't want to reveal just at that moment that I hated the show, but I was like, oh, that explains why it was absolute garbage. And it felt like it didn't know what its tone was. It felt like it didn't know what it was trying to say. And whatever it was trying to say, like what they wanted you to know, they really hit you over the head with, but they didn't allow for anything interesting to sort of percolate and simmer. It was just like, oh, Matt is like right on the cusp of becoming Daredevil again. Did you know? He's like, everything was leading up, you know what I mean? Is like hitting up against a wall. And I feel like a good example of them being like super on the nose. Luna's apparently upset, I think, because I was doing this. But stuff as far as being on the nose. So they don't trust you to figure anything out, even the simplest of concepts. So I'm going to go ahead and give them some benefit of the doubt that they're like, we want to make this accessible for people who didn't watch the Netflix adaptation. So
Sure.
if that's the case, then the whole idea that Matt, when he is listening for people's heartbeats, he's doing it to see if they're lying. I understand why they would crank the volume so you understand when he asks and he kind of listens. Okay, that's what Matt's doing. However, the first time, it's when he's talking to Hector after he hears that Hector's getting beat up by the cops, and he asks him, is there anything else interesting about this case I should know about? And then he listens, and they play the heartbeat getting louder, and then they like zoom in on Hector's neck, like the pulse point, and I'm like, we know what he's listening to. Like, let us know. It was just, we get it. They treated us, I think, Sean, you said the original Netflix felt like a show for adults, and then this one just, it felt like Disney was like, we can have violence and curse now, and didn't actually make it for anybody. Who is this for? It's not good.
I'll say one more specific criticism, then I'll give the floor to Marcus or Enrique. As much as I love Bullseye, I did not understand the scene where perpetually he's in prison with his hands bound very tightly because they're like, hey, if you let him out, he'll kill you. And then he's like, I got a boo-boo. I need stitches on my head. And then they're like, that sounds like a good reason to take off his handcuffs that keep him from killing us. Why? Why did you do that? Like,
there's a lot with Bullseye.
It just felt like we need Bullseye out. We can't think of a reason for him to get out on his own that makes any sense. So we're just gonna have the doctors be complete morons and be like, burp, burp, or whoever. I mean, I guess maybe the guards. I don't know. Whoever was like, well, he definitely needs his hands free to get stitches in his head. That's certain. That was stupid. Because then
Bullseye should have died also.
Like, I'm just
after face planting off of a 5-story building.
Yeah. I guess
onto the concrete.
Yeah. I mean, come on. Like, have the guy like accidentally hit, like, I don't know, maybe there's like an outcrop from the building and he lands on that. But yeah, he should have been super dead. Like, I was like, oh,
should have been super dead.
I was like, oh, Bullseye's dead. That kind of sucks. So then
at least in the
actually, when we're watching the show, it started zooming in on him, and then I was like, and then his eyes open, and then when I was like, oh shoot, I was kidding. I thought he was dead for sure. I guess.
Which I will say, this is one of those shows that you do have to suspend disbelief when it comes to people's injuries. But at least and I'm not trying to say, well, the original did it way better, because they absolutely had Matt getting basically killed over and over and over again, and he would still, get up to fight. However, there is a moment when he is having a sort of philosophical debate with the nurse. I'm forgetting her character's name. But she's like, okay, but you could have killed that guy when you threw him off the roof. And he's like, I knew the dumpster was there, whatever. So to Sean's point, just make him fall into like a thing of garbage where it's like, it softens the fall or something. And I don't know.
On the ground. I was like, that guy should be so dead. Like, there's
the only I told Sean, I'm like, dude, Foggy, come on. You're the only one apparently who actually falls victim to your injuries in this show, because Matt takes pretty much the same shot. And they try to like have this mirroring imagery of Karen over Foggy and then Heather over Matt. And then he gets up and fights that same evening, like a couple hours later. I was frustrated. We'll get to the stupid Muse. Apparently that guy, he took Taekwondo for like 3 months when he was 16, and also he didn't have any bruises after his fight with Matt. Anyway, Enrique, I feel like you should get a chance to talk.
I need to yield the floor for.
Sorry, this is I'm focused. My nephew's crying, so I'm like listening. So I guess I'm pulling a Matt Murdock, just like
you gotta like
so people understand. Yeah, just like Disney. Just you guys know that's what I'm listening.
That's Enrique's listening. Look.
No, at least that looks contemplative. I feel like they have him like twitch like he's a cyborg malfunctioning when he's like, listening. You look like you smell something more than anything.
You know what's funny? I think that's how Charlie Cox like dealt with that in scene.
It's
Just
like
like, hey,
Joey's smell.
yeah, like
yeah.
what's that smell? Just like contemplating where it's coming from. I will say that my criticism is Karen Page. I was hoping she would have died. I was hoping Bullseye was gonna hit her first instead of Foggy, but that was unfortunate. So that was my criticism because I told this to Sean before when season 3 came out. They dedicated a whole episode to her, and I'm like, I like skipped through most of it. I'm like, I don't want to see her. She's like the worst, so I'm not skipping through it. So even I felt the urge to do that in Born Again. I was like,
She's hardly in it though.
I know,
Yeah,
that's
and I was gonna say
good.
it's got to be better for you. She's barely in it.
Yeah, but when she shows up again, I'm like,
It just grinds your
she
gears.
annoyed, yeah, she annoyed me in The Punisher too. When she pops up in there, I'm like, fuck, Frank, you don't need her. Think about the dead wife. Think about the dead wife. This is what you're doing it for, not Karen. So Karen was a big one, and I feel like again with what you guys were saying about like it being 18 episodes long and then just chopping it up. Now that I'm like rethinking about it, it makes sense how like some scenes don't make sense. Like I'm assuming those BB reports were maybe a little bit longer, but they're like, oh, we got to cut it down, and they just put them in most random spots, kind of thing.
To help with the transitions
Yeah.
in and out of maybe some
Yeah.
of those cuts to help.
Yeah, and I'm like, again, just like Sean, like, why do I need to see New Yorkers saying that their city's bad because one lone man from one part of Hell's Kitchen is cleaning it up and it's gotten worse? I don't need to see that. I just want to see the devil of Hell's Kitchen drop down, dropping people off buildings, not dumpsters, just face plant, and that's fine with me. And I want to say the Kingpin, for whatever reason, also seemed off to me. Like he wasn't the same badass that we saw in the first Daredevil run. Like that man demanded respect. He got his hands dirty. He was like a true essence of criminal mob boss. And then this one, I know he had to become like the mayor to be good and whatnot, blah blah blah. And I'm like, this ain't the Kingpin. So what?
To bounce
Until they
off of
wanted
that,
him to be, and then they're like, well,
right.
he also popped people's heads like grapes. So
Yeah,
I have to to bounce off what you're saying, Enrique. I feel as though they couldn't decide if he was actually a mastermind all along, or if he was somebody who had wanted to change and was trying, but he couldn't resist falling back into himself.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because, and to me, this is a plot hole, unless there's something that maybe somebody can add in. But the big reveal toward the end is that, oh, it was Vanessa who was the reason for Foggy getting shot. And the reason is because they have this Red Hook area where they're able to bring in things without really having to fall under the jurisdiction of the city. So Vanessa the whole time keeps kind of asking Fisk, why politics though? Why would you take away from basically our criminal empire, our business, to do this? Why would you be doing this? And he's very overtly and openly trying to get this Red Hook project started. Which, first off, I'm like, wouldn't somebody look into this even a little bit and be like, hey, this is outside of the jurisdiction? But also, wouldn't Vanessa figure it out? Wouldn't she be like, oh, I see what you're doing, and I'm going to ally with you because you're just playing all these people and you're playing this
long
persona.
game.
Yeah, this long game.
Yeah.
So that we can continue to build our criminal empire essentially and get whatever we want while also getting an in with some of the most elite, prestigious people that we wouldn't have those connections with if we just stuck to. So she should know this because she's already aware of what Red Hook does. Then she sees or should see what he's doing with Red Hook. And I'm like, they should be on the same page about this. But evidently they're not. It's like, and once again,
Vanessa cheated on him, so you know it's hard to focus.
Well, he was
But
away, Sean, in prison, so she should have
yeah,
waited.
yeah. But do you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, so he was the whole time trying to get this certain thing sorted out, or he wasn't, because it seems like theme wise they're trying to show these parallels, because they do have so many scenes that are meant to be, I think, parallels between Matt and him. Like the very beginning, they're showing them both getting dressed, they're picking their clothes out of their closets, all these things. And Fisk, he doesn't reach for the white like he typically would, but later on when he shows up in the ballroom, he's in all white again. You know, that kind of thing, where they have that scene back and forth between him and Matt, and they have a number of back and forth scenes between him and Matt. And the Matt theme is very much like a return to being born again as Daredevil. You cannot resist the side of you. So it seemed like that's what they were doing with Fisk. And then they couldn't decide if that is what they're doing with Fisk or not, because it's like, well, then that means all along he was just himself, and he was playing us, or he was playing playing the viewer, playing everybody else. But then I guess playing Vanessa too. I'm like, is Vanessa just dumb? It's a plot hole. I think it's a plot hole. It aggravates me, because I'm like, this isn't a cool reveal. This is you relying on, I guess, having a weekly release schedule and people kind of forgetting about what happened before or something. But this is not clear. This is a mistake. In my opinion, unless somebody has something to add.
They dumbed him down, honestly. I feel like they dumbed Kingpin down, because in the first 3 Daredevils, he was beautifully like a genius. He had plans within plans within plans. He tricked the FBI into being his private army, keeping them like in his like majestic hotel. He had a hitman who became a better Daredevil than Daredevil. And he had like all these little intricate little plans for the future. And then this one, he's just like, oh, you're going to be my director of social media. Kingpin doesn't care about social media. Like, what the hell?
But they're trying to make parallels to modern day politics.
Yeah. But part of me is like,
yeah,
I'm going to use.
I think you mean director of odd old documentary style films. That's
BB's department.
To your point though, Enrique, about how before they made him like this genius who he had dirt on everybody too. He either was tricking you, or when you finally were going to face him, he had dirt on you, and then you had no say in anything. You were sort of forced to comply. In this one, the woman who is resisting him at every turn, and then she just records the former police commissioner and then hands it over and is like sobbing in the hallway. You're like, he has nothing on her. Yeah. Why is she doing this? And second, we all know he was gonna take that guy out anyway. We didn't need that recording. He had been at odds with that guy from the start. So, but it was lazy. There was no reason for her to just like give in, unless we want to, contemplate, like, did she give in because she was afraid, or because she was career oriented, because you see she has some level of pride where she's like, I'm going to be here long after him, and maybe she underestimated him or something, which I kept telling Sean, they even say it in one of the BB reports, I think, or somebody on the street was like, I heard he bashed a guy's head in with like a car door or something. They like hint at something he did in the past. So I'm like, okay, so people know that this is not a guy to be messed with. And they push back on him about the most annoying, simple things that I'm like, why are they talking to him like this again? But anyway, again, to your point, Enrique, before it was like he was a mastermind, and now it's just like simple. For some reason, this lady's just gonna hand over this recording, I guess. It was irritating. Marcus, do you have some thoughts on this particular part of the conversation?
Yes, Mark. Yes.
Well, for like criticisms, for me, it was, I can't push back against, anything really. I guess I go into positives later, but for my criticisms were like a lot of like little, like, I think the problem with this show, and for the most part, is lacking execution in the details. Like, one of the things that made me laugh, that I thought was bad was like, Bullseye, the whole thing with his hands being free, but also like, okay, we're gonna do this a little bit further. We're gonna have it be a tooth that he dislodges from his mouth, and he's gonna spit it so hard into this guy's eye, it's basically gonna kill him. I'm like, that. It's bad, but I'm also laughing at it. Like, I'm like, this is.
It's like that makes no sense.
Well, it didn't need to happen. It didn't need to happen because he immediately just like unvelcros.
Sure, yeah, I'm like, you get like, yeah, again, yeah, you could have figured something else out, or like, the post-credit scene, like Punisher being like, hey, and having that conversation, and then sticking his hand out, like, oh, so the guy's gonna stick his hand and he's gonna break it, okay, stuff like, I mean, stuff like that, like, that stuff like that bothered me. CG Daredevil wasn't my favorite.
Power Rangers Daredevil.
What's that?
Power Rangers Daredevil.
Power Rangers,
like,
yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
jumping
like,
off the roof.
yeah.
I'm back, everybody.
Yeah, and just, I mean, overall, I mean, like, a lot of the plot threads that didn't make a whole lot of sense, or just not, like, that just, they're either wrapped up way too quickly or they don't have any payoff, or, like, very little payoff. I mean, for me, when I read the Zdarsky and a little bit of, I read a little bit of the Charles Soule run, which that was the introduction of Muse. Nothing's like a huge villain or anything, but I thought it could be something that was interesting. It's different from the Netflix show. And I'm like, okay, you can, but it's, it's 2 episodes. It's not much. And I guess that's more, expectations on me. But yeah, just a lot of things that don't really get fleshed out. A lot of things that just kind of, happen to, come together. Like I said, for me, like in my overall thoughts, like I'm going into it knowing like, okay, so they had to splice a bunch of this stuff together and come up with something. Is that really what, is that what season 2 is going to be like? Or are we actually going to, is it going to improve? And if not, then, I might even have, more of a negative feeling towards this season.
Kind of
once it's comes up.
To piggyback off of, just narrative threads coming out of nowhere and then not really doing anything. And sort of Enrique's Kingpin thing. I like Kingpin as a criminal mastermind, and I don't even mind him being ruthless and violent, but I don't peg him as like keeping people in cages in a weird basement. It's like, okay, I almost give you him going after the one guy, right? Adam or whatever his name is. Like, okay, he's got some rage issues. His wife cheated with the guy. Okay, I guess I could kind of see keeping that one guy. But at some point, if you're going to make him mayor, you can't have the mayor having a cage full of people in the basement. You know what I mean? Like, it just, at some point, it's like, this is a little silly. Like, either pick, like, he's going to try to seem legit and be mayor and use, like, almost like the government to his benefit, right? Maybe he can do things, launder money or something, or maybe he uses the cops as his own kind of private army, which he starts to do. But but you can do that in like a realistic kind of scary way that doesn't involve executing someone with your bare hands in front of cops. That was another thing where I was like, I don't know if all of these guys should be like really glad I just saw my old boss get his head, torn off, by the mayor. What? Like,
but I will say to the show's credit, like, I'm not trying to like, oh, this show's really good, you guys should really like see it for what it is. But like, to like, at least in that context, those cops are all like terrible people. They're awful.
No, I'll give you. So like, I'll give you they're terrible, but I don't know if I quite follow their.
Yeah,
I hate my former boss so much.
Yeah,
I will watch him be executed by the mayor. Like,
they hit such an emphasis during Hector's trial of like the cops are all part of a gang. Essentially, they all are part of this messed up brotherhood. Is kind of the vibe. Until the adversary in front of them is the mayor. And then, because if the commissioner, I feel like they tried to play it up as like, well, this guy wasn't really one of you. He used all of you. And it's like what you're doing right now with your vigilante task force, you're obviously doing the same thing though. You're not out there. I guess
but they wouldn't. They wouldn't think of it like they're like in that like the context of like that journalist who like came and was like, oh, I slipped and hurt myself, and you should be taking photos or whatever. Yeah, that was it. He shouldn't be taking photos at this event. And then you're like, hey, I'm gonna put you. I'm gonna press charges on you. And he's like, yeah. And he puts his hand into the grease.
Yeah, but that guy wasn't the guy that was there. These were all completely different.
No, he wasn't there. He was with Frank and stuff. But all these other weren't all those cops that were there in front or there with oh my god, with the oh my god.
The
Okay,
Kingpin
yeah,
and
but
the
breaks his head. Weren't all those cops part of that task force?
Yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah.
I don't think so.
No,
I don't
I
think
think
all of
think-
them
I
were.
think they
I
were.
think they all were.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
they were. My I'm just saying, like, Mayor Kingpin could be interesting if he was using his mind to like control the government and sabotage everyone, and it was like this long game, cool thing.
Right.
And I think criminal Kingpin is interesting, right? And if you want to use criminal Kingpin where he's bashing people's heads with doors and using violence and intimidation, cool. I don't think they go together successfully, just because, like,
Oh, okay. So you think a kingpin, you need to choose one path or the other based on the show that you're trying to tell.
Realistically, even if all those cops are garbage, one of them is going to say to their brother or sister or cousin or aunt or uncle, "Hey, Mayor Fisk, I watched him pop a guy's head like a grape."
Yeah.
And then, like, I'm just saying, like, you can't have that sort of stuff. You can't have people in cages, like, you know, wherever that is. I guess Red Hook or whatever at the port. But I'm just saying, like, at some point, realistically,
Yeah, you have to be more careful as
like senators. There are people who are going to be like, wait a second, the mayor did what? Like, I just
couldn't you make the possible, and it might be a possible argument by the end of the show when Daredevil shows up in that bar with everybody, there are a few cops in there who are like, hey, we just saw this happen, we're not down with it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, it was just a little too far-fetched for me, because I don't
he's not in a powerful enough position to be able to do anything he wants.
I don't inherently dislike the idea of him being mayor. It's just I think that could have been so much more interesting. But
he's also the mayor who has a past, and everybody's supposed to have their eyes on him. Like, he should be extra careful. I think kind of what you're saying.
Anyways, I guess to go all the way back to what I'm saying, I don't really mind him killing Adam if it's like, I hate this guy, and I guess if it has that, I'm killing him. But I hate this guy. I'm going to take my anger out on him, and then, like, we'll just make him disappear. I just feel like you can't do that for, like, so many people.
Yeah,
when you're the mayor, it just seems a little like, I don't know.
Well, I think I kind of jumping off what you're saying too, I think that they fail to recognize what so many people find compelling about political thrillers. And what you were saying, Marcus, about apparently, and I'm trusting you on this, Marcus, but apparently they were like, we don't want all this talking. We don't want all that fluff. Let's cut it down. And political thrillers are compelling oftentimes because they feel real. They feel like you're looking at somebody who is a genuine, and this goes back to what Enrique, you were saying, and this would fit with Fisk, is that this is a genuine mastermind. This person knows how to play whatever system they're in. So before he knew how to navigate the criminal underworld, and I feel like the idea of that character now has to put his intelligence towards a completely different field is interesting. But they decided that he has to be the brute again. And I don't think he had to. And I think a good example of how they couldn't decide what he was meant to be and how he was supposed to act is that he felt like, anyway, to me, he suddenly becomes so hateful of Daredevil in that scene where he's like sitting at the window, like looking out, and he's like, just the way he can just do whatever he wants and he can get the credits, and he gets all. It's after, I think, the Muse thing where Daredevil was there and he doesn't want Daredevil to get the credit. And so he's like, it's just hating that idea that Daredevil's out there. And it's just such a long obsession kind of thing with him in that scene. But I don't feel like they've been building necessarily that, like, Daredevil's always on his mind. And you know what I'm saying? Because it's like all of a sudden, it's like Daredevil is the only thing he focuses on, where you would think he became mayor just so that he could take out Daredevil, is what it felt like in that scene. But I just don't think they know. I mean, it's been a long time, so maybe I have nostalgia goggles to some degree, but I feel like later on, actually, it's the opposite. I feel like it gets too far-fetched, but early, what's the Kevin Spacey show that everybody
House of
was...
Cards.
Yeah. Maybe if I were to go back, I'd be like, oh, actually, this is cheesier than I thought. But House of Cards was just that character outsmarting everybody. And sometimes, I mean, the fact that you would have a moment where you're like, what's the vote going to come down to? And you're like, why should we be that invested in that kind of a thing? But it's like they don't trust in this show that we're going to be that invested in something like that because they don't know how to build to that. It's the same as to throw out a book example in the second Mistborn book, which I think is a great political fantasy example here. There's a moment where like there's a character who there's a vote happening and then the vote goes one way and then someone says, can I change my vote before it closes? And you're like, no. And it's like right before the end of a part. It's a climactic moment. And that, again, it doesn't seem like on paper it should be that much of a thing to be invested in. But when you know how to build, because you understand the consequences of if things go differently, you know what the characters have been working toward, you've watched them. So I feel like that could have been done with Kingpin and they didn't do it. And also Kingpin essentially became like a book talk mafia boss for the like dark romance reader, because him and Vanessa's romance in this, like, isn't it romantic that he kept your ex-lover in this cage? I mean, because they finally were able to bridge the gap between them after she shoots the guy and they like embrace lovingly. And I'm like, what is this? And then it's like they're looking at each other with hearts in their eyes. And I was like, this is goofy.
So
this
Love
is goofy.
is the aphrodisiac, I hear.
Yeah. Sean, do you have any of my exes anywhere for me to murder? Because if you do, it'll really be great for our 10-year anniversary.
I don't have it in me.
That's what Luna's barking at. She's trying to make sure they don't come up through the basement.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, she's on guard.
So I know it seems like this would be a good time to switch to something else, but I don't know if you understand just how many criticisms I have. So before I launch into more, does anybody want to chime in about other things? We'll get into praise and where the show will go from here potentially.
Maybe we should take a pause and have some praise.
Okay.
Come back to your, because I almost feel like your bullet criticism. we can bounce off your bullet by bullet criticism.
Okay.
Episode by episode.
Okay, so I'll give you a criticism and then we can bounce off of that. We haven't even talked about Heather and what a garbage person she was.
Oh,
I hated her. I would take Karen in the whole season way like 1,000 times more than this. The part where Sean, stop with the the part though where he mentions like that Poindexter was switched to general population. She's like, like rolling her eyes like this again. And I was like, okay, I get he's been like a little sidetracked lately, but that's the most heartless reaction from a therapist who supposedly loves you. Anyway, so
you're talking about your dead friend again?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So so the very first time they meet, which by the way, that was a pretty messed up way for the coworker to get them to meet. But I wrote no effort made to actually develop dialogue between Matt and his new girlfriend. Just play music over them looking happy. That's all and now I feel like you could apply that to most anything in the show. Anytime they needed something to be developed, just show the actors like acting well, looking like, oh, we're having banter, but don't actually have any decent writing. Just have music play over and them silent. So that was an example. Does anybody want to talk about Heather now and what a garbage person she was?
Garbage? Excuse you. She saved herself from use. Just saying. Did Karen ever do that? No.
Karen shot the one guy that Fisk had as like his
pause acting now.
No, I will say, Karen, there's a great scene where Fisk's right-hand guy, the kind of like
Wesley.
Glasses and I'm very proper, that guy is sitting across from her at a desk and she just grabs the gun and shoots him and you're like, oh, they can do that in shows and movies, I guess. I don't know why they never do. And it's a kind of
Daredevil wasn't there, so it wasn't really a thing because Daredevil was together.
is Karen actually saved herself in that moment. Heather being like, I saved myself. These are just boys with egos. I'm just like, dude, okay, you for sure would have been murdered. I'm sorry, but you would have. And also, to Marcus, your point about attention to detail, what the heck happened to the massive gash? She's like at the gala immediately after, no wrapping on her arm, wearing, maybe it's not immediately after, and they're just really bad at using time, like devices to have time pass. But also, I told Sean, I'm like, oh, look at symbolically, he's wearing white and she's in a white gown, and now they're dancing together. I bet she's gonna end up on his side, and oh, look, she does. But I'm like, where's her giant gash? Where is it?
And that's the consistency that I think is missing, having to splice a lot of this stuff together.
Sean, what were you saying?
Well, I shouldn't say in Heather's defense, but I guess a rare moment in the show's defense. I don't think it's bad that you disliked Heather.
Right.
She could just be like a kind of annoying, stupid person. You know, like like at first I was like, oh, she's all right, and then you're like, oh no, she's kind of an annoying, stupid person. But I don't know if that was like a fault of the show. She's kind of sucks. Like as a
no, I think you're supposed to dislike her, but to Danielle's point, I don't think she's consistent, or like I don't think that leap or that move from someone who's trying to, she's in love with Matt and trying to figure that out, like, and then goes to a point of like, hey, my next book is going to be about, vigilantes and the masks we wear. Then the minute something like that happens with Muse, she, like that quote you said, I was like, that doesn't seem, I know she just went through something traumatic, but that still doesn't seem consistent with the fact, like, this guy just, like, I know they're trying to give you that, Daredevil's like, hey, I just saved you, but, can't you look at it that way? And she's like, no, like she completely to me just flips. So I don't find her consistent, but I mean, at the same token, I don't think you're supposed to like her because she is kind of, but I don't think she's consistent, the character.
I don't think she was. They also did the really stupid superhero character trope, as far as superhero characters' girlfriend trope, where somehow she's involved with every single one of the characters' adversaries. Because it's like, oh, she's Muse's Muse, and she's the therapist for Fisk and Vanessa, which once again, you're like, so Fisk knew this all along, and he went to her because she's with Daredevil, or he genuinely wanted therapy with Vanessa, and it just so happened to be Heather. Like one of those, are we supposed to believe he was behind this all along? Or, anyway, but after episode 5, when she was like, you were in a bank robbery. Are we going to talk about this? And he's like, that was fine. And like, she doesn't follow up at all on it. And then when she finds his like one little bruise in the shower, and at first she just kind of looks at it, and then they are smooching and whatnot. And then later she's like, so are we going to talk about this? And it's like, she doesn't ask enough questions, like she's
like, I'm blind. Okay. I bump into stuff.
So I do feel like his acting in that moment is really good, actually, where he's like, I lied because it's embarrassing, okay? Yeah, like that acting is good, but she should have, I don't know, if I see like a massive injury on Sean or if Sean's involved in a bank robbery, I'm gonna ask more questions, and not because I'm suspicious of him, but because I'm like, I'm worried about you. That was a extremely traumatic thing. Anyway, so there's a lot of stuff with her, but Sean's right. I kind of have it bullet by bullet. So, I will say, I'll give a kind of compliment to the show. I thought this was kind of a cool shot, even though it was a little obvious. Is early on, they have Fisk, like in episode 1, he's sitting, and there's some kind of, it might not be a glass table, but there's some kind of table or surface that's somewhat reflective. And his reflection in that surface with the light behind him makes it look like a halo around his head. And I was like, that's kind of cool imagery. I thought that was kind of cool. Probably the only thing I said that was nice. I was annoyed at the constant use of, so somebody who knows more about cinematography and camera lenses and those sorts of things would know better than me. But when you have your iPhone and you press, or any phone, doesn't matter, but you press the like 0.5 and it zooms out, but it makes the edges like wrap around. Do you know what I'm talking about? It distorts it. They had so many scenes shot like that, and I'm pretty sure there's one where they have Fisk on one end of a long table and Vanessa on another, because villains have to sit across from each other on massive tables. And I think they use that shot like decision, and I'm like, why? This usually adds focus to whatever's in the center, because it makes sense when Vanessa sets that one guy up to go get shot and he's like eating his food or whatever. And I'm pretty sure they utilize that, which makes sense because he's center in the frame. And so it's like, here's the guy coming up to, he's the target. But the rest of the time it's like, well, now they're kind of warped in the frame. Does that, I'm like, why are they, did they not have a good enough camera for this room? Is this room too small for the shot of this long table? Why are they using this? And they came back to it a lot. And I feel like when you utilize different lenses or those sorts of things, it's usually with a lot of intentionality or a cool effect. And it just kind of seemed like a thing they did, and it annoyed me, but I don't feel like anybody else cares about that kind of stuff. So, and early on when, in the first episode, I think, or second episode, when Matt and Karen are arguing in the hallway after Poindexter's trial, and they're like openly talking about him being Daredevil, and I'm just like, there's a lot of people walking past. Why are they talking so loud about this? Like, pretty openly. I feel like Fisk was more tactful when he talked to him in the diner than Karen was, and I'm just kind of like, why? Anyway, other people say things now because I'm gonna.
Speaking of Karen, I just want to talk about the remarkably quick plane she had from San Francisco to New York.
Yes, during a blackout. Somehow they still landed, and somehow she got a message to Frank. I don't know how she did all those things while on a plane, and I don't think the plane would get there that fast. But somehow it was like, Matt's in trouble. I'm going to hop on the next flight that's leaving at apparently a perfect time to get to New York. It's not full, and it's going to land during a blackout. And I somehow message the Punisher.
And get a car.
And I arrived just in time.
Yeah.
That's some pretty good,
Yeah, when it happened, I was like, she has to have already been on her way here. There's no way. And she's like, I came as soon as I heard you were shot. I was like 3 hours ago, you're in San Francisco. How did the plane land when you have, like, the entire airport would also... Sean, I feel like Sean knows what to say to get me to start ranting again. And I feel like that's why he looks amused.
You don't
have to stop it. I do. During the blackout, can I just say, Sean made fun of me for this because he was like, I don't think anybody cares. And I was like, I care. And it comes back, Marcus, to what you said about attention to detail. I'm sorry, turning off the lights in New York does not make the sky suddenly look like the Alaskan wilderness. Pollution doesn't go away.
Weird to me too.
Thank you.
What the hell? There's nowhere that's a clear of a sky when a city that never sleeps is like shuts down. Like, no.
I don't know if you know, but if you just turn out the lights, all of pollution disappears.
Pollution was gone.
Okay, but you would not see everything in absolute clarity. You wouldn't see
I feel like there's like nitpicking and then maybe like nitpicking. I feel like that falls into next level nitpicking.
No, I don't think it's next level. That is a failure to recognize what New York City is like, which is an integral part of their characters. Like, Hell's Kitchen is gritty and dirty, and I feel like that was baked into the characters themselves before. It's baked into Fisk, and like, okay, well, they're maybe not just in Hell's Kitchen anymore. They're in all of New York City, but all of New York City is dirty and gross and smelly, and it's rough around the edges, and that's what the New Yorkers during the BB report are supposed to represent. And then you turn the lights off and suddenly it's this beautiful skyline. I'm like, stop.
I just don't know if there was like a citywide blackout in Chicago on the Bear and it was really clear. I don't know if we would be talking about the clear
No,
stuff.
I would poke fun at it. It's just that would be the only thing to poke fun at because the rest of the Bear is great. That could be like my one, like, that's not really realistic. But then I'd be like, wasn't that one monologue really good? Richie talking about like kids needing ketchup for their hot dogs is really funny. I would be annoyed at it. I will say there are certain things that irk me because I'm already in a bad mood because the rest of the show I think sucks. But that I was genuinely annoyed by, because if you're trying to set the setting you would ensure that New York doesn't look. Why? Why did it look so pretty? I feel like you're messing with me now. It's fine if you disagree.
I think I disagree on this one. It doesn't
Okay.
bother me in the
I mean,
Well,
I don't think you're
Enrique-
wrong, but it does. It is like that's something I didn't notice. I had other issues with the show.
Yeah, I have a lot of issues, but
Not
Enrique,
noticing. It annoyed me the minute I saw it. I was like, wait,
Oh,
they're
I
still
was
in
like,
New
oh
York?
yeah.
This isn't Alaska. What the hell happened? One blackout, and you can see the star lights. I'm like, no. Like, I get it. It's supposed to be a fantasy
Can I
show.
just say something in
Yes.
your defense of the stars in those scenes? Okay, if the point is that there's a blackout, so like the light pollution, there's no light pollution. If they put up like how that would reasonably look in New York, it wouldn't have the effect of like, oh wow, now you can see the stars, because it'd probably be still somewhat normal. I feel like you have to do it a lot and very vividly to make the point of, oh, now you can see the stars because the lights are out. I guess I don't know if it's that, like, I don't know if they were going for realism. I think they were trying to be like, look, stars. Like, I don't know.
it's pretty clear they weren't going for realism
Yeah.
when they face planted Poindexter off of a building and he
Guy
survived.
dressed as a devil suit. I think
I'm just-
realism left out.
I'm
that.
just saying that I feel like attention to detail when you're trying to establish a setting, which half of Fisk's lines, it feels like, I'm exaggerating, of course, but so many of his lines are like, I love this city. And he's talking about it's like his closing line of like, but I love New York. And it's like a big part of their characters even, and the feel of the entire show and that noir, gritty, dirty feel. And then it's actually beautiful if you just turn the lights off, actually. It's so pretty. It bothers me, but we disagree. Okay, let's talk about Taekwondo, everybody.
Okay,
Let's talk about it.
That irritated me. He took 3 months, right? And he's
Yes.
a master to take down a ninja. I don't think
When
so.
I was watching that, I was like, I hope I just misheard that. And it was like, oh, it was 3 months, and like it was like 3 months with this instructor, and not 3 months overall.
Then
So clearly, it was 3 months overall.
But can I say not even the time, but just like how clumsy that information is inserted?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah,
if even if he was like been taking Taekwondo for forever, like it just was like, oh, well, he's Taekwondo, like it's just like.
And then to your point too.
The previous scene where he like put up a fight against Daredevil, so they're like, "Did you know he knows Taekwondo?" And then it goes to the therapist where he's like, "I took Taekwondo," and you're just like,
"Did I ever tell you that I took Taekwondo?" I don't know. I think it's so that in case
clear.
Yes, once again, they don't trust you to figure out. Oh, I wonder if this is the guy. It was so blatant that at first, I was like, is this a red herring where they're trying to make us think that he's, but wouldn't he be like beat up and stuff? And then when they're like, did you know I took Taekwondo? I was like, okay, it's obviously not. It's just really bad writing. And the whole like, I took 3 months of Taekwondo, or they are talking about it to Fisk. Like he took 3 months and then the guy turned out to be dead. I'm like, okay, 3 months is nothing. Even if he was really good in those 3 months.
Sure.
And I feel like you could argue like, well, Matt's been out of practice for a while. Okay, out of practice for a year. This guy hasn't done Taekwondo since he was 16 years old, and he took it for 3 months. He's not going to stand a chance. And even if he did, let's suspend disbelief that for some reason, the corrupt cops, this Taekwondo prodigy, they all can somehow put up a fight against a ninja. Fine, let's just pretend. They still have things called bruises that happen. Like he walks into that appointment like, hi, how are you, woman I'm obsessed with / Daredevil's girlfriend? Because of course you are, because we need a reason for Daredevil to save you. Like it's just so stupid. Everything about it, I could not believe. It was such a bad episode. It felt like a parody of superhero shows. It was so bad.
I want to say, didn't he get like shot in the arm with his billing club? I remember Daredevil where he stabbed through him, and he goes up and punches him in the face. Where was that injury?
I think that was in the therapist's office, though.
I thought it was like in the.
No, it was in the cave.
Yeah.
Oh, he got stabbed through in the cave? Oh, dude,
Yeah.
that
Well, and
guy
he, like,
should
doesn't he
make-
choke him? Like, isn't he?
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
Daredevil
Yeah, he choked him out a
give
little bit.
us
Mhm.
gives
Yeah,
him a
so
no bruising around here
Yeah.
at all.
yeah, and
This
this is
and then
what's
this
ahead,
is
Marcus,
where
sorry.
I start getting like wondering, like, is this really what they're like? This is what they're trying to fix, and like, hey, we can't get to all these things because of where we're at, or is like, is it because this has already been shot? We don't know what to do with this.
Mhm.
You know, the stuff like this. That's what I wonder. That's why I want to. That's like I want to see another season. Like, okay, are you actually really all this? You know, missing out on all these details and stuff, or is this really how it's going to go for
Well, if you're
for 3
doing
more years?
if you're doing reshoots, then reshoot it properly. You have to
Hmm.
know what you're reshooting for. If they're reshooting because they
Mhm.
realized, okay, by the time that scene would have happened the first time, it was months later, so he would have healed from his injuries, but this is the next day. We need to go in. Makeup needs to make it look. You can even give him like a popped hood collar type of situation, and when he like turns, the therapist sees markings,
Mhm.
and then that's what clues us in, not the detective being like, he took Taekwondo, and then him being like, did I ever tell you I
Right.
took Taekwondo? It's so
Mhm.
bad. There are ways around this that don't have to be so clunky and bad. And another example of like a way they can cut is even the whole introduction between Matt and his girlfriend. Cut that completely. It's been a year. Just say Matt has a girlfriend now. There you go.
Mhm.
You can cut out their weird, awkward meeting and the weird playing music over them having dialogue. You cut all that out. Matt lives with his girlfriend now, and I guess it's a therapist who happens to now be seeing Fisk and his wife, which would be way more suspenseful because then you would be asking the question right away of, does Fisk know that this is his girlfriend? Is that why? As opposed to what they're doing, like there are ways to make cuts where you can have the timeline be more efficient and
Mhm.
not have it be this much of a disaster. It was, and why did his nose start bleeding? Why? Why did it start bleeding in the middle of his therapist's
He got
appointment
pounded in the face by Daredevil. That's why.
with no markings, no
Yeah.
bruises?
You got
It's
because
like,
you gotta you
His
gotta
gloves
know that
are
he's
magic.
mused.
Yeah, his
Like-
mask
Psychic.
was magic, guys.
In superhero
That's-
stuff, psychics always have their nose bleed.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he should have been bald then and
Yeah.
having a vision to make his nose bleed.
Or
But
blonde hair.
it feels,
blonde.
yeah, it feels like in any movie where they're trying to showcase victims of some kind of domestic abuse, those women bruise unbelievably so, where suddenly like they have to wear turtlenecks that nobody sees.
Mhm.
And I'm not trying to make light of that. I'm just comparing it to how when you need it to show the audience, look at this woman, she's being abused. You have all the markings in the world, and then when you have a villain who's just been beat near to death, and he is like just like a baby, like a newborn baby. It's ridiculous. I can't handle how bad it is.
I have to say, like, overall for the show, that might be the worst episode. I mean, that the Taekwondo lines combined with the like Matt reading the painting and knowing it's Heather's face. I mean, those were two beyond stupid things where whoever wrote that episode, I'm like, you should feel bad. Like that's pretty bad.
Not only that, there
Like-
was one more thing that didn't make any sense. So one of the corrupt cops, vigilante task force cops, the one that randomly, when like Fisk walks into their garage and he was like, all of you have been here because whatever, he goes into his monologue. And the one guy steps forward and he's like, tell us about yourself. And then the guy's like, so what happened to me is, and he just like immediately launches into it. That guy is in the therapist's office looking at the scene. And he just says out of nowhere, he doesn't know Fisk's obsession with Daredevil. There's apparently thousands of vigilantes out there. He just says he was here. And then Fisk like looks at him and he goes, Daredevil. And I'm like, why would you start by saying he was here? You would say Daredevil was here, or a vigilante was here, or someone saw Daredevil go through the window, or based off of previous cases, I'm pretty sure this was the vigilante Daredevil. You would say something like that. You wouldn't go, he was here. Because you're like, he doesn't know that Fisk cares about Daredevil. Why is he saying he as if it's like this omniscient god that all of them know about? It's so bad. I agree, Sean. Sorry to this person. That was not good, but you're probably fine because I hope you got paid a decent amount. It's by the way, my notes for this, I have Taekwondo, really big because I couldn't get over it. And then I said, OMG, the nosebleed. And then I started to type out, is he going to start drawing? And then ... No, he started drawing was the next one. And then, are we going to get a flashback of him touching her face? ... Stop. This is so dumb. And then he was here, Daredevil. Those were my notes for that. I hated it. I hated it so much. It was so bad.
I also, just to be really nitpicky, it's probably unfair, but like.
There's nitpicky, and then there's. Sorry.
No, I'm acknowledging this is too
Okay.
nitpicky, but I'm just saying like there was not enough blood out of his nose
to actually create that much.
Yeah.
I thought the
blood
same
like
thing.
a little bit, and then he was like.
And then he creates this whole
It's like-
thing from it. Like, dude, you really got to be bleeding more to be making that, man.
You need to go back to the well, man. Like that.
Yeah,
Like,
you
it would've
got to show me going back.
It would have made more sense if he just cut himself and started drawing.
Yes.
Sure.
Then he'd be healed in like 5 seconds.
That's true, but he
That
doesn't
might have
heal
been
without his like beat up white shirt, his dirty white shirt and mask. He doesn't heal that way. Oh yeah, in the next for episode 8. You know what? I don't care. Matt's girlfriend about Poindexter. I also put this is kind of mean, but it's just bad writing in the penultimate episode when BB is talking to the sycophant character, whatever his name was.
Talked about yet.
Yeah, the one who like goes in and out of having a super thick accent, and then
Mr.
sometimes
New York.
Yeah.
what do you see when you look out this window? Starbucks. You're like that guy. So BB's talking to him, or no, I don't even know if she's talking to him. She's just talking to somebody, and she says, "My uncle used to say, speak truth to power." And I said, "Just your uncle, huh?" Like that's like a commonly said thing. That's not a specific thing to your uncle. It's so bad. I can't handle it. I'm sorry. Somebody.
They really wanted to tie Ben Urich into this born again thing, I think.
Now,
like my uncle, because she mentions him quite a bit.
I just want to bring up that you have a compliment. I know you have one about BB and the commissioner, their conversation.
Most interesting part of the show is when she's having the conversation with the commissioner, who I thought he was a good actor too. I just want to say, when she has a conversation with him and she says, "I don't only write under this name" or something. I was like, most interesting part of the show, because they even told us early on, Fisk has a quote where he's like, I'm going to stop trying to impersonate him. It's not like it's good.
It was really good. It's really good.
Thanks. He says that he feels like she's used to being underestimated. And then she, proves that's true, that she's just kind of playing the system, playing the dumb guy until she can get enough dirt on Fisk to actually make a difference and do something. I thought maybe that she had actually been having communication with Karen because Karen had a connection to her uncle as well. And that maybe Karen from, halfway across the US has been putting stuff out about Fisk would be kind of interesting. But I almost feel like they're saving whatever she's doing for a future season. But I thought that part, I actually felt like the commissioner and her were two of the better characters as far as quiet plot lines, because they beat you over the head with pretty much everything else. So I did like that.
And nieces. I thought White Tiger's niece was all right. She's a good young actress.
I really liked her as well. I really got annoyed though when she was telling Matt, my uncle was onto something. He mentioned this is a problem. He's like, "What do you want me to do about it?" I was like, that is so out of character for him. It's unbelievable. I'm like, dude, your best friend guy is a detective who clearly has contacts. You would let him know this. You'd be like, I'll let them know. Because the last time you interacted with this little girl, you said, we have to believe that we will find his killer, and I'm going to do everything I can. And then she shows up again. You're like, what am I supposed to do? It just did not. It seemed like they forgot his character. I don't know. That irritated me a lot. It was just so that she would get mad, so that she would go do it herself. That's all the reason was for that.
But she was good.
She was great.
Yeah.
I predict they're going to try to tie her with Ms. Marvel.
Oh, no. Wait. Camilla Khan? Yeah. I do like that actress is really good. I do like her. they're saying like Captain Marvel. It's like, oh no, I'm sick of her.
No,
This
not
person
that.
sucks.
Do you have any positives?
Costumes are
Those-
good.
Are you talking to Enrique?
No, to you, Danielle.
I have already listed all of my positives.
That was all of them. Okay.
Those were
That was
all of them.
Those
They
two,
were-
that was it.
Those two.
Yeah.
Yeah, those two.
I
Hey,
laughed. I laughed at
I-
the end when Matt.
Another positive. You have another one. You liked the guy who got like 10 days in prison for stealing popcorn or whatever it was.
I did. I thought his monologue was. I thought the point of it was. I agreed with the point of it, and I thought his acting was actually really good, but I felt like it was all in service of Matt's breaking point, and it didn't really. The only time it kind of came back was when he's having the argument with his coworker, just to say like, "Look at all these things," and he just like lifts off things that have happened in the episodes they kept. Apparently, I wish they. I don't know. I feel like that could have been a bigger thing, but it feels like all the splicing they did, it's like they never fully realized any one plot or had any one plot be actually
Is this the White
interesting.
Tiger one?
This is the guy that Matt was like,
He
there's no
wanted
way you're getting probation.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, you're not gonna get
Oh,
probation.
yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. Gotcha.
That guy, I felt
Mhm.
like his acting was great. I thought his monologue was good. It was sad. But I do feel like it ultimately just kind of, it would have been better had it not been in a show where everything is beating you over the head. Yeah, Sean.
Oh no, finish your thought.
That was basically it.
Okay, I want to ask the resident Punisher expert. What did you think of Punisher? I thought it was cool. I like his scenes. Enrique, what did you think of Punisher?
Obviously, John Bernthal was amazing, and I like that. Like he's portrayed as a pardon my French, if the little kids are watching this, an asshole. In the comics, he's an asshole even with when he's interacting with Daredevil. And I do love that he's like, you know what, Frank, you're an asshole. And every time he appears in his own show or like previous seasons, that's the general consensus is that Frank is an asshole. So I did like that. And that speech where he's telling his wannabes, his copycats, that they don't understand his pain. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah, I was really annoyed that I had to hear that speech in segments because it kept cutting to.
Yeah.
I don't know who. Oh no, it kept cutting to fist
Daredevil.
the guy's head.
Yeah,
Like
that's right.
you know, I like a good head breaking, but can we let Frank talk? I want to hear what Frank has to say. That annoyed me. But I like Frank.
It did it really well. I'm not gonna lie. They did that whole spew of it because I read issues where Punisher like goes out of his way to try to take down the Kingpin, and there are some issues where he falls into a trap that someone sets up, whether it's a Kingpin or somebody else, and he gets caught, and he always ends up going to jail or, as like this one turns out, locked up in a cage under Red Hook. And I thought, oh, that's really cool. They did something. They pulled it from the comics. He gets tricked into going in by himself, not asking Daredevil for help or anything. He just goes guns a-blazing. He gets caught, and then he's surrounded by the copycats. Like, you know what, Frank, you should join us. This and the other. We could learn so much. We could do this. And he's like, are you guys really that stupid? Like, I'm doing this because the criminals did this to me. You guys are doing it because you guys lost a paycheck or whatever nonsense. And they don't understand.
I agree, because when they were saying like basically we look up to you, we want to be like you, I was like, he's motivated by a corrupt system that is responsible for his wife and child being killed.
Children.
Yeah, you don't. Oh, yeah, you don't. That's not the same thing at all.
John Bernthal's a good actor. I like
him.
Doing a good job.
He is.
It's an incredible actor. And the issue I recently read too had that little scene, sort of similar, but he catches the cops with a Punisher decal on their cop car, and he's like, "The hell is this?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, we look up to you, blah blah." And he, like you said, he tears it up. He's like, I'm what happens when the system fails. I should not be a role model. You want a role model, look up to Captain America. He'll love you to look up to him. But if I catch you guys doing what I do, I will put a bullet in you. I'm like, that's classic Frank Castle. And in the show, they did that beautifully when they're like, well, guess we're going to pound you. And then they pop him in the face. He's like, is that all you got? And then just keep, and he's just like taking it true to Frank Castle. Like, he doesn't whimper, he doesn't cry, he doesn't beg. He just takes the beating on no matter what.
Yeah, I agree that I thought that they could have done more with that, because I don't know if the show established well enough in this season. I don't know if they're relying on something else, but within this season, I don't know if they established well enough why these people look up to him so much and are willing to let some of their own be murdered by him just to draw him in and try to have a conversation where they say, hey, why don't you join us? So I don't know that I think they established it well enough, but I do think that it, to your point, Enrique, the character that we've been shown thus far of Punisher, this is in character for him to be disgusted with how they think they want to be him.
Yeah.
I think that's what I mean, ultimately I find frustrating about the show is like there are moments where I'm like, yes, let's go. Like that's what we want. I liked that scene a lot. I think the first scene where Matt cuts loose when those corrupt cops are going after that guy, and then he just like beats them, then like the episode ends with him like yelling. I was like, let's go. Like,
let's go.
But then there's a lot of nonsense. I'm like, oh man.
Well, in the scene where he's talking to Frank and Frank keeps saying like, let it out, I know you want to hurt somebody, and he's kind of crying and he smacks him, and then
that's a good scene too.
Yeah, probably one of the better scenes in the show.
That's also very Matt Murdock Daredevil vibe, I think, in the comics. Like, if he stopped, he'd be like, I'm trying to be Matt Murdock right now. No Daredevil, nothing. And then Frank just being an asshole, poking the bear, and then pop, immediately like, I'm sorry. Just like initially, like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. He's like, what are you apologizing for? You had to let it out. Say his name. Say your friend's name. And he wouldn't say it until like after Frank mentions his name, then he like goes on to that really amazing scene.
I was the tiniest bit frustrated that the scene right before that was Matt just like reaching into that apparently rather pristine street gutter and just like immediately being able to pull out. And you're like, okay, I know that he knows it's there because he knocked the little bottle down and stuff, but like that thing would be disgusting. You would find more than just that little and he reaches and he just grabs it perfectly. I have to say that exactly, echolocation. Speaking of Matt and his dialogue, so I laughed at his ending monologue, and it starts with, I can't see my city, but I can feel it. And I was like, no, this is corny.
I was like, no.
This feels like they're like, they typed into chat GBT, like, have Matt Murdock give moving, like basically epilogue. And then that's what it came up with. Because I'm like, why would he start by saying, I can't see my city? And once again, they can't decide how much he can see it and he can't see. Because can he see or not?
Blind? Oh my gosh.
But he knew that Frank got a shave and a haircut. Marcus, you haven't had a chance to talk as much recently. Are there other things you would like to add? I will say I have said basically everything I have to say.
No, I mean, for me, the positives are Daredevil and Punisher. Anything that they have together, even their first scene where he's reunited with him, and Frank's underground lair, whatever. I liked that scene a lot. When they meet each other again in the last two episodes, I like everything that goes on between the two of them. I'm not a Frank Castle fan. I don't like the Punisher, but I haven't read a whole lot of the comics. I like
you in his head.
He's
done with you. He's like, no,
no more Ghost of Tsushima. He's there.
But I like the juxtaposition between Daredevil and Punisher of like, I'm willing to go to this level That's why I like season 2 the most, even though season 2 on the Netflix version is probably the biggest mixed bag. That part is such a high for me that's why I like that season the most. So I think for me, when like talking about the show, when those two are clicking, it works so well for me that I can forgive a lot of different things. Um, which I mean, what we've talked about, there's a lot of issues that I even agree with. They just don't hit me as hard. Um, I don't remember. I mean, I remember aspects of Kingpin in the Netflix show. So in this version, I really liked what Vincent D'Onofrio did. I don't know if I can compare this Kingpin to the Netflix one because I don't remember it too well. But I liked what Vincent D'Onofrio was bringing as an actor to the role. And Charlie Cox is Daredevil. I feel the same way. Just a great job. Like you said, Danielle, lines like that in that scene. I agree with that scene. Talking to, what was his girlfriend's name again?
Heather.
Heather, yeah, talking to Heather about running into things. I'm like, that's a really poorly written line, but he actually makes it sound okay because he's a really good actor. So those are the things that I really liked and just elevated enough to me to having to saying that the show is fine, not hating it, not saying it's bad, like it's fine because of those things. I'm trying to. I mean, something that I did that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me at all was that relationship between that head of communications and BB.
Mhm.
Like, if she's searching for the truth and you're trying to make it parallel to what's happening in today's world and today's political climate, they wouldn't be friends. There's nothing about the two of them that makes them. There's no connection between the two of them. Or if there was in the show and I'm missing it, tell me. They're on complete opposite ends of what they want to get done, and that didn't make any sense to me.
I think that the
yeah.
effort they were trying to make there was that kind of what the commissioner told her of when did you become his minister of propaganda, and she released that story saying basically that Daredevil wasn't there, it was all Kingpin.
It was the task force that took down Mute.
Yeah. I think that maybe what they were going for is that she is going to publish whatever they want and that she's going to be essentially like what she was accused of being. I think that's what they were going for, but on a personal level, I almost think it makes sense that he is so dumb that he doesn't realize that she's using him and he thinks that he's just using her.
Okay. Sure.
That's the impression I got anyway, but I don't know if I remember how they even came to know each other. He was just really moved by her BB reports, I guess.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
The only person who was.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, other than that, I mean, I found the show to be fine, knowing everything, all the context and stuff. But again, like season 2 continues like this, it's not something I'd want to continue to watch. And it's not something that I'm going out like, hey, everybody, you should watch Daredevil, Born Again. It's, I watched it and it was fine.
I think I've been pretty hard on it also, this discussion, but I would not like Elle say it's like one of the worst things I've ever seen. There are certainly worse things, I think.
Right. One of the worst things I've ever completed, I should say.
I guess it's bad.
When I hate things, I usually turn them off.
I would give it a C+ or a B-. It's not it's
B-.
Not A material, but I think that's the thing is man, some of those, I'm just repeating myself, but some of those scenes that were good, like the Daredevil Punisher stuff, you're just like, I just want more of that.
Right. No, that's how I felt. Yeah, no. Every time they were on screen, I was like, this is what I'm looking for, and it hits really hard for me.
Yeah. I do think narratively, I might, especially going into a season 2, I might struggle with this whole Red Hook is apparently another nation nonsense.
Right.
I'm like, it's a little stupid, but I kind of have to come back to, in a way, if I read that in a comic book, I would probably just go with it. I'm like, that makes sense. And I don't know.
Makes sense.
Yes.
I feel like there is a certain level of superhero, you just go with it kind of stuff.
You were really bothered though by the fact that the end of the show was he's putting a curfew, he's doing all these things in New York, and you're like, Governor would step in.
Yeah.
governor would step in,
Right.
the president. I'm like, it's New York City and you're making it an 8:00 curfew. That's impossible. All of business is going to shut down. It's not going to work.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think, that did annoy me. But I kind of already touched on that, where I'm like, there would be someone asking some questions, you know? I don't
Right.
think they was like,
But
well,
nobody would ask questions since the commissioner didn't make it down to the Capitol
Yeah.
because his
That's
face
right.
got exploded.
That's
Yeah.
right. They're too busy up in Albany to pay attention to little New York City.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Little New York City, the little
This
apple. as I
tiny
call
little
it.
town. Yeah.
Yeah. City that always sleeps is what I hear.
Yeah, that's what I hear too.
Beautiful skyline,
Yeah.
stars everywhere. It's a photographer's dream.
Isn't it a
Yeah.
bunch of little
Right.
places, like little towns like Brooklyn and Queens? It's just a bunch of little towns.
Like villages, little
Yeah.
villages.
Yeah.
There's some trade here and there,
Yeah.
you know.
And there's a foreign nation really close, actually, called Red Hook.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Do they have political prisoners underneath their basement?
No,
Is what I hear? No? Oh, okay. Okay.
Never.
Oh, geez.
So it sounds like we all loved it. Is the
Yeah.
consensus I'm getting?
Wait, where does it go from here?
Right.
I think
Hopefully.
nowhere good. I don't see this. I personally don't see this getting any better.
Nowhere good.
I think that they're just gonna roll off of kind of. I'm not trying to mock people who like the characters and are just happy to. But I think that they know that they're banking on people watching this because it is Daredevil. And when people talk about why do none of these companies, Hollywood, whatever, ever do anything new, it's like, because if they do something new and it sucks, you will not come back. They're going to not have to try as hard when it's characters that are already established and that we love. And as long as they have good actors who can deliver and they pay them well enough, they don't have to have the action scenes look very good. They don't have to have the writing make much sense. They don't have to have the timeline line up well. They don't have to pay attention to detail. Just have the actors deliver really well, put a big enough budget in, and they'll make their money back. It irritates me a lot. As I'm sure nobody noticed throughout the many times I articulated that. Anyway, I don't think it's going to get any better. I will say though, on a like, what do I think they're going to do with it? I mean, I think what I already said about how they're going to try to tie this in even more with some of the other Marvel characters. And I think that's what the bank episode was. Because they even talk about, like, we got to build an army. I think they're kind of trying to do their own, like, gritty version of kind of like a redo for the Defenders. I think they're going to try to build to that. And where they had a lot of different villains this season, I think they're going to try to integrate more of the characters because they want to try, and that's what they're always aiming for. It feels like, is to do some kind of crossover.
Yeah, I'm not really excited at that idea. I think Daredevil solo. I think part of my issues, and I didn't really talk about this, but you know, there were just like some characters we didn't need. Like, I don't really know if we needed that young kid, you know, with the New York accent. You know, it's just like, he's fine, I guess, but do we need all these random characters? So especially with like Daredevil talking at the end and Josie's, like, I don't really want to watch like a team up between Daredevil and that lady cop who negotiated with the bank robbers, not because she seems bad or anything, but it's just like, I don't care about her. I don't know who you are. You know, like, I have no reason to care about you. And I don't know, just like the idea of them like hiding out in like the closed bar, it just seems a little hokey. So I
will say a
hoping that's
positive
going, but
I did kind of like the joke that she told the bank robber guy.
that was a pretty good joke. I did.
So like, oh, I guess I did it with a penguin.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Anyways, I want Daredevil fighting solo. I'm not sure if I want like Daredevil's army, but
I'll add that I just looked it up that apparently season 2 is scheduled for 2026. Some people saying maybe as early as March, and I'm like, well, okay.
Yeah, before the show came out, they did announce that like season 2 has already been like greenlit.
greenlit, but I mean, I guess they're gonna film really fast.
Yeah, like they're probably. I think I saw like they're shooting right now.
Mhm.
Enrique, where do you think we're going from here, or what predictions do you have?
Again, I like what Sean said. Like Daredevil's more of a solo hero, so to see him interact with all these other vigilantes hopping in there, other than like Frank Castle, or it'd be interesting to see him interact with Moon Knight, just because Moon Knight is crazy and kind of funny. But with other like the bigger heroes like Captain America, Spider-Man, or any of them, nah, he wouldn't do well in that world. So I'm hoping in season 2 it's still grounded into the little Hell's Kitchen and not branching out to like other areas of New York, because it's just like Daredevil Matt Murdock loves Hell's Kitchen. They should keep that fight in Hell's Kitchen, because he grew up there. He goes to church there. Everything good that happened to him happened in Hell's Kitchen. He met Foggy, became an avocado of law, became Daredevil, and having Fisk being a mayor and trying to take Hell's Kitchen away from him seems like it's something he would do personally to get back what he wanted. So I'm hoping they still keep it like every now and again a cop or two shows up, like not them fully on army like battling, just like here and they're like, hey, Daredevil, there's something going on in this space. Like they are his eyes and ears kind of thing, and he's just going down there and beating the hell out of the anti-vigilant task force, or whatever the hell they're called. So I'm hoping
Anti-vigilante task force.
Yeah, I'm hoping it goes there, and I hope Bullseye comes back as Bullseye, like from season 3. Not so much this season, because season 3 he was like crazy, like perfectly full-on Bullseye talking to himself, or having a frozen lady next to him. He's going, hey, this is Agent Morales. He's one of the good ones. And he's like, what the like, just let me.
I think I really don't feel like they utilized him enough in this, but I found that their little flashback after it's been revealed that it was Vanessa, which in that scene where they're dancing and Fisk is like kind of talking to Matt Murdock by whispering as he's doing like his dance moves with Vanessa. I'm like, so does he know that Matt can hear him? Because he's kind of talking to him. But anyway, I just found that Bullseye, after it's revealed that Vanessa is the one that hired him to do what he did at the beginning, we then in the next episode get a flashback of him miserable and Vanessa being like, sign this and you'll be free.
You'll be free.
And I'm just like, we didn't need that. We got it. You know, like that's another thing that if they wanted, they could have cut that. It's established that it was Vanessa now, so move on. Like, I guess if you want to explore him, you can have that scene later. You can have more of him later. I just think he was very underutilized in this season. I agree, Enrique, that he was fantastic before in season 3 of the previous Daredevil. I thought he was a great villain character that you weirdly, even though he was out of it, he was a character you kind of felt bad for, even though he was doing terrible things. And he just was there to shoot sometimes. Did you have more to add, Enrique, for where you think it's going to go?
I hope it goes well, honestly. I saw the images that I saw going around, like Daredevil in his full-on black suit with the DB on it. I'm hoping that's accurate, because it's cool Daredevil having his plane, no symbol on it. I'm still kind of itching to see the 2 big D's on his chest, but maybe season 2 that's an actual photo and not a AI one.
A boy can dream.
Yeah.
And Marcus, where do you see it going from here? You might have the most insight. I feel like you're the most tapped into the news for these things.
Oh, that's true.
I mean, for me, I think it's going to get better. Or at least I hope it does. under Bob Chapek, it was all about pushing out content. Secret Invasion was bad. The Captain America movie was bad. It was literally about, it doesn't matter what the quality is. It's just get content out there for Disney Plus and for movies. People, like to what you're saying, Danielle, people will show up because it's RIP and that's what's going to happen. Once you got fired or let go, things have changed, and Thunderbolts is supposed to be the complete, like, hey, this is where things got back on track. Let's, try and correct course. So, I mean, if it doesn't get better from that point, we're probably in for more bad Daredevil. But I believe that it will get better from this point forward. So, I think it will. I think Elektra's probably going to make an appearance at some point to try and tie that into it. I'm okay if like the Defenders kind of like comes back into play at least a little bit. Depends on how it's done. I wasn't a huge fan of what happened on the Netflix series, but if they do it well, I'll be down for it. But yeah, I think the Hand will probably make a way back into it. Maybe, I mean, I could even see, because I've heard them talk about it, Spider-Man showing up at some point. I don't know if I'd be down for it, but again, it depends on how it's done. But like I said, if season 2 is like more of the same, I'm probably not going to keep watching because I wasn't a huge fan of this. Like I said, it was fine, but I do think it will get better. But I'm usually wrong about this stuff.
Well, maybe.
What if they have Daredevil and Punisher and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, and Daredevil has to stop 2 people from murdering everyone? He's like, "Oh, stop it, guys! Stop it!"
Guys, no, please,
just stop.
Then Peter Parker will be like, "Oh my gosh, whoa,
whoa, why are we doing this?"
Start whipping.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I also kind of think that the machine is too big to stop at this point, as far as there is the effect of you have to watch this to know what's going on over here. That's why I'm concerned that it's going to, especially with how it ends with we need to build an army, that they're just going to try to maybe not connect, like you were saying, Enrique. I don't know that they're going to connect it to the biggest of the characters in the MCU, but I do wonder if they're going to expand so that when other characters get their own show, you feel like you then have to watch this other one over here, kind of like the Iron Fist situation.
Oh no, that is the worst thing.
I know. But I also could just see them kind of replaying Jessica Jones, Luke Cage. Maybe Luke Cage is like somehow gonna team up with Punisher, and then I don't know. I could see them kind of.
Hawkeye's current status. Sorry, is Clinton Barton still around in the MCU? I don't even know.
Yeah, he is.
Since Jeremy Renner he's still around, but Jeremy Renner got really hurt, serious injury. He's not coming, from what I know, he's not coming back for anything,
I feel like Hawkeye could be a good street level
sure
accomplice.
Haley Steinfeld could show up.
But didn't they elevate her to be more with some of the other characters? Yeah, so that's why I'm like, I don't know. I know Fisk like made some appearance or something. Yeah. I just don't see that being tied. I don't know. I do think they're going to tie it with other stuff, though. I just don't know exactly what. That's my guess. And we'll have to see. I wonder if we'll reconvene to be like, let's go through rumors about what it's going to be.
Wait, what about, hear me out, Moon Knight, but done right?
That's a crazy concept, Sean.
What about, listen?
Moon Knight could kick some tail. Let me tell you.
What about? I like that, yes. But what about Moon Knight done wrong?
No.
That way you have no expectations when he comes back.
You know what's weird? I think I've read more Moon Knight than I've read Daredevil. That's a weird, fun fact. Yeah.
That is weird.
Well, this was, I guess, cathartic for me, but I
let it out.
Even though we had this planned, I was like, I might need to film something solo so that I get it all out and then I don't take over. And I obviously didn't do that because I kind of took over and just ranted about how much I did not like this. But I will say thanks to Sean for putting up with having to watch the show next to me.
Sean loved it. Look at his face.
Even though Sean didn't like the show, I feel like my absolute disdain was frustrating to some degree. But I mean, I hope it gets better for all the actors and the people that are working really hard to make this the best it can be, for their sake, I want it to be better. I want it to be better for the fans. And I want it to be better just in general, because I want the things that people consume to be of the quality that they deserve to be. And I don't think currently it matched that. I don't think it is a quality that the budget would make you expect. I just think that Disney is putting out, not in every area, but in this area, I think they're not putting in what they need to. Kind of what you were saying, Marcus, before. It was just like, just put out content. I absolutely hate that. Right. There's so many things that they could do. They need to stop and take their time to produce something of quality. And I don't think they did that, but I hope that they try and that they do course correct.
Yeah.
All right. Any final words from anybody? No.
Heather would be really proud.
Enjoy Daredevil Born Again.
Yeah. What'd you say, Enrique?
That Heather would be really proud about you right now as a therapist. She'd be like, "Oh yeah, but also I saved myself." That's what she would tell you.
I saved myself by getting up while Daredevil was distracting the serial killer.
Daredevil took too many blunt hits into the victim. I killed him.
Yeah. I actually did wonder, I was like, are there no female vigilantes? Because she is like, they're just boys with big egos, or whatever thing she says. And I was like, are literally none of them men? Or are none of them women? Because that throws your bad theory out the window. But whatever,
there's Kate Bishop, there's the other Black Widow, there's Kamala Khan, there's unfortunately Captain Marvel still, then there's the other Marvel lady, then there's She-Hulk. That therapist had nothing in her brain when she was saying that.
They're trying to make you forget She-Hulk so fast. Like they don't want to talk about that again.
But that's a part of the Daredevil collection. I told you.
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
Hey, can I say one thing? I never watched Disney Plus. The app is absolutely terrible. Is anyone else like, this thing is awful? And how do they have that much money and they can't have a decent app? It's
been like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
It would randomly fast forward, and we'd have to stop and try to rewind.
Here. Yeah, stop, rewind it, or then it would buffer. Yeah, no, it's been like that forever, ever since it's been made.
They should be ashamed of themselves.
They're not. They got that money.
The quality of the app is kind of a metaphor for the quality of their shows. Just low. And on that note, whoever ends up watching this 2-hour-long, basically rant session of Daredevil Born Again, thanks for watching. It was a time, and we'll see you all later. Bye.